I'm sitting here with Andrea. I want to talk to her about meditation. I've been inviting a few of my both friends, or I have a supervisee who does a lot of mindfulness. He doesn't call it meditation, he just calls it mindful presence, which he calls really from the contemplative perspective of Christian faith. He's a Christian Baptist minister, and he's done a lot of work, and I've worked with him for years, but I've been talking to some other Qigongers. But what I'm understanding really is, because I've been asked to do the meditation program for the cancer centre, could I ask you, what you've meditated all your life, what do you mean by meditation?
I would say it was a sort of just an inner listening, just a sitting quietly. Although it doesn't have to be sitting, but it's being in contact with, or allowing the it's not even being in contact with. It's finding that space and just being in that space. So instead of being in the thoughts and the feelings, you're in that in which the thoughts and feelings are. So, yeah.
That's a lovely phrase. So it's within that space in which the thoughts and feelings are. Do you mean in which the thoughts and feelings actually are a part thereof? So do you ever think, is there any additional component? Do you focus then just on the breath, or just the inner listening?
I do all different things. Sometimes I focus on the breath, sometimes I don't, sometimes... There's so many different ways to meditate. So many. You can do it on the breathing out, the breathing in, the gap in between the breaths, the whole body. You can do walking meditations. There's loads and loads of different ways of doing it.
And do you think that, would you call inner listening the same as awareness?
No. I'd say awareness is, inner listening would be to, because it's so much of life is about where you focus, isn't it? And where you place your attention. If you place your attention on your thoughts and feelings, or you place your attention on anxiety, for instance, then you'll have an anxious time. If you place your attention on being quiet, you'll be more quiet. So it's really just where you place your attention.
That's a beautiful phrase. So it's like, it's where you place your attention. So when you meditate, do you purposefully place your attention on inner listening then?
Sometimes I might, but sometimes I just might just allow whatever happens.
So you wouldn't necessarily have an intention?
No. Because an intention is a thought, and it means you want something. An intention is, I want this to happen, or I'm driving this in that direction. That isn't an allowing.
So intention versus attention are two different things.
Yeah, I'd say intention was more sort of goal oriented. It's going. It's a directive going towards something.
And may I ask, what do you think brought you into meditation?
I think everybody is a meditator at some level. I think everybody has a sense that they want to be peaceful, or happy is the other one. Everybody wants to be happy. So they know that there's something other than what they're experiencing, that they're looking for something else. And I think we just all have different ways of doing it. You know, some people get into heroin looking for happiness. Some people, buy stuff, can't stop shopping. They find happiness. But it doesn't stay, any of those things. It comes and goes all the time.
And given that, if I were to say, how would you describe your journey with meditation?
I'd say it was kind of a journey back to myself. So it was going around in circles.
And you use the word back. I like that phrase. Do you mean knowing that it was always there and couldn't find it or something?
Yeah, I think we spend our time looking out for things. We want, if only he would change, if only I had more money, if only I had a bigger car, if only I had a better job, if only this would happen, if only would that happen. Maybe that's true, but it doesn't last, none of it. Because anything to do with thinking, feeling, it changes all the time. So the point about meditation is to find the thing that doesn't change. And that's always there, because it never changed. It never even was started in the first place. It was never even born to change.
And when you say, I use the phrase, I'm kind of connected with source.
Yeah, you could call it source.
Could you call it source?
You could call it source, yeah.
The unchanging.
Yeah, it could be source.
Never present, but always there. The Tao that the Qigongers might call it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many words for it. Consciousness, awareness. There's loads of words. God is another one.
And would you say it has changed your life?
I'd say I had I think if we just say meditation is a sitting meditation, then that isn't just the meditation. That's just one small element of it. Meditation, generally, if you say the sitting with the attention in the source, for instance, then that does change things. I think it changes things for everybody, because you're not so externally...
Just looking in rather than looking out.
Yeah, it's being with it. It's being within. Being within.
Thank you. Have you any question you would ask me if I were to do some meditation for a group of people who were suffering with cancer?
Well, I wouldn't have a question for you, but I would say that meditation isn't for everyone. The kind of meditation that we tend to talk about as being meditation. I think if somebody's anxious, having a really hard time, I think sitting there trying to so-called meditate isn't going to work then.
No, and I was thinking in those cases, I think that's a really good point. I think in those cases I've been making some kind of thoughtful presence in words as you're doing things.
Yes.
And that's what I'd like to do, It's kind of like, if you're anxious, be with the anxious, rather not necessarily attend to fully the anxiousness, because that's where you place the attention. But then there's the dichotomy that's where you place the attention, the energy goes, and that's what you accept, you go beyond, But I do agree. What if you were to put it in percentages on your life experience? Do you think it's when people are so overwhelmed with physical, psychological, emotional pain or dis-ease or disharmony, people can't meditate as easily?
I think a lot of people can't. I think a lot of people who are sitting there for the first time will find it really difficult, because what happens is it's like having a glass of water with some sediment at the bottom, and it's all fine, and then you shake it up, it all it rises from the bottom, and it's like that. All this stuff comes up.
You mean when you shake it up, meaning when you settle down to?
So when you start to sort of sit there, supposedly, thinking that your thoughts are going to disappear, your thoughts go nuts. You do the opposite.
And would you say in your life it has changed your well-being?
I say I was naturally always quite calm. I've never been that involved in dramas.
So it comes more naturally to your personality type.
Yeah, I think I'm a type. I wouldn't say I was a meditator. I would say it was meditative.
And what do you see as the distinction?
I think some people just really love sitting there for hours, you know, the classic sitting, meditating. I wouldn't say I was a natural sitter, meditator, but I have a meditative tendency. I'm quite quiet and quite calm.
And what do you think source is? God, consciousness.
It's impossible to say really, but I know what it you know, the Ramana Maharshi, they say what it isn't. There's a process which you probably heard Sadhguru say called neti, which is about, you know, what it isn't rather than what it is. It's because you can't describe it because it's formless. We can only talk in terms of form. We can only talk about objects.
Yes, in time and space.
In time and space. So it's none of that. So therefore, it's impossible to describe it in words, except to say it's not that. It's not that. It's not that.
It's kind of, you get closer to it by defining what it's not.
Yeah. In fact, you get closer to it when you don't define it at all, because it's indefinable.
Ah, yeah. That's what the Tao is. That's what Lao Tzu talks about in the Tao Te Ching, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. I've not done.
Oh, yeah. The Tao is, you know, the Tao is the Tao that you cannot name or see, cannot hold or believe in. It's that, you know, it's the presence of nothingness, and yet it's everything.
Yeah, it's exactly that.
It's the nebulous, intangible.
Yeah.
That when you try to grasp it, it disappears and then it reappears. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all of that. Yeah, the Vedas are very similar. Right? The sutras and the Buddhists, it's all of that. It is, but it's actually quite simple. I mean, it is very simple, but we're so conditioned to not go there. It's unbelievable. You know, the mind really doesn't want to go there, and we're completely in our minds all the time. That's the tough bit.
Yeah, and I've been in the last few weeks, because I'm interested, I've been asking a few people about meditation, but I'm thinking that really that music and sport, that the attention given to both music and sport is, I would say, for the general populations, the greatest meditative invite.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree, and in my book actually I did write a bit about that. Music is brilliant because you don't think music. You're not analysing music. You know, you allow music to sort of come through the airways and touch you. Touch your heart somewhere. You resonate with the vibration of the music. So it's very high music, much higher than words, I'd say.
And this is such a lovely conversation, Andrea, and if I were to use it, we would discuss it, but what's the name of your book that you've written again?
Oh, right. Choiceables. But the book is really about a model for making choices, and I haven't promoted it.
Well, what would you say it's about if someone was listening to this, and I put it as a link on the end of my website?
It's because choices, I think most people have problems making a choice. That's one of the big things. Making decisions is a huge thing for a lot of people. And what I've done is just put a little model together to see how you could make a choice. And it's in 3 different stages, but they're not stages. You know, you can do either one at any point in time. So one of them is about reflecting on your thinking, actually, and what might drive you to certain choices because of the way that you've been brought up, or what someone said to you, or that you made a mistake in the past. You know, all that kind of analytical stuff that we get into when we make a choice. And then I've got 5 different things to think about when you make a choice that I think you can use for any choices. And then finally, there's kind of a choiceless choice, which is where you're just in that being space and the choices appear to be made for you. I mean, possibly they're always made for you, but I don't know.
Would you believe that's kind of the universal taken a direction?
I mean, it could be, because if you look back on your own life and you think, how did this happen? You know, how did you meet your partner? Did you actually design that? No, because it just happened to be in a place where I happened to be, and or how did you end up with that job? Okay, you can give yourself a sort of logical kind of, what appears to be, but is that really true? So it's difficult to know. But then you might say, well, why is it then, why is it that some people seem to have really difficult lives, and it appears to be because they've made not such good choices, and others seem to make brilliant choices? Who knows? I mean, maybe it's just all happening.
And what are the 5 things that you said in the?
I've got a mnemonic for it. So it's SPECS. So it's self-confidence. Because I think you do need self-confidence when you make a decision. You have to be sure that you can make that decision. So it might be that you go and do more research, for instance. Just have a look around and see what else do you need to know in order to make that decision, and then have the self-confidence to go through with it. And then process it. And everybody has a different kind of process as to how they make decisions. I've noticed some people talk to everybody and their dog about it. Other people just listen to themselves. Some people make incredibly fast, they call them intuitive decisions. They haven't really thought about it, they just kind of know. Other people spend days and days on the internet looking at them. So there's all these different ways of making choices, and each choice maybe has a different mechanism as well. But if you change the process, that could also change the decision. Like if you never researched anything, but you just thought, I'm just going to do it, and then you decided to research, you may well come up with a different choice. So process, I think, is quite important. And then expression is a bit like your branding in a way. It's like, is this decision that you've decided to make aligned with whatever your values are, or whatever you believe to be it should be? So does it fit with who you are, who you think you are anyway, who you think you are? So expression is quite interesting. And then C is about connectivity. Does who do you want to connect with in order to make this choice, or does this choice help you to connect if you're interested in connectivity? And then finally about security, because I think a lot of us make choices because they make us feel safe. And in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, security is a big one. Is it? Am I going to be okay if I make this choice? And I think, am I going to be all right is at the bottom of a lot of people's thinking.
Am I going to be all right?
Yeah. Am I going to be okay? That is really important to people on all different levels, because we feel we're separate, and while we think we're separate, we feel we have to protect ourselves. And in the protection, we want to feel secure. And some of it is instinctive, because basically we are still animals. There is that fight or flight in all of us. But we have gone over the top with, the fear, because our thinking, a lot of our thoughts are fear-based thoughts, or protecting ourselves thoughts.
And have you used it much in commercial practice?
No, I've done a bit in coaching, but I kind of ran out of steam with that. Actually, I didn't take it forward, and maybe I should have done. Maybe I still will. I don't know.
I have a feeling you will, because there's such a big movement now, and since I've been preparing all the work that I'm doing recently, I see so many women, young women as well. But I think there's a big place for your book. But anyway, I'm going to use this tape and, Choiceables by Andrea de Vries. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, yeah.
De Vries, yeah. Thank you, Andrea, so much.
Well, pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thanks for the interview.